Hi, enjoy listening. The streets of downtown Providence still lay half asleep beneath the soft blush of early morning light. It was a Saturday, and most people were tucked warmly in bed. Yet a young woman hurried down the wide avenue with her head bowed, her arms clutching a worn tote bag against her chest. Her steps were quick, almost frantic, as though she were running from something, rather than simply walking to work. A gust of cool wind tangled a loose strand of auburn hair into her face. Normally, Megan Price would have brushed it back with a laugh, but today she let it stay there. The strand served as a shield, hiding the glint of tears threatening to spill from her swollen eyes. Each blink stung, and the salty dampness at her lashes clung to that single strand like raindrops. Megan was 21, and despite her striking looks, her life was far from easy. She wasn't the kind of girl who had the luxury of sleeping late in a soft bed on weekends, nor the kind who spent Friday nights at bars or nightclubs. Instead, she worked as a waitress at a cozy breakfast cafe, just blocks from the corporate offices that never truly rested. The cafe's name, Morning Glory, was cheerful, though her mornings rarely were. She had left home hours earlier than usual, not because of her shift, but because she couldn't stand another minute in that apartment. Her father had stumbled in just before sunrise, reeking of beer and cheap whiskey, pounding on the door until her mother, half asleep and trembling, finally let him inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, his temper erupted. One careless comment about the mess in the hallway turned into an argument, and the argument turned into violence. Megan had grown up watching her mother, Diane, endure it. Endless bruises explained away as clumsiness. Endless apologies from a man who never truly changed. This time was no different. When Diane hesitated to fetch his medication quickly enough, his rage boiled over. He shoved her against the wall, his hand raised, until Megan appeared, a rolling pin clutched in her fist like a weapon. Her father, Martin Price, didn't scare easily, but even in his drunken haze, he knew his daughter had stopped being the timid little girl who once flinched at his voice. She was a young woman now, fierce in her protectiveness. "Get away from her," she had snapped, voice shaking more from adrenaline than fear. But before she could act, Diane stepped between them, begging softly, "Megan, please, don't. He's sick. You know that. He doesn't mean it when he drinks." Martin had doubled over then, clutching his chest in one of his familiar displays, groaning about his heart condition. Megan had seen it before. These dramatic collapses often came at the precise moment when consequences threatened to fall on him. Her mother, panicked as always, rushed for his pills, fussing over him with the same tenderness she'd shown for decades. That was when Megan realized she couldn't breathe in that apartment anymore. Not with her mother's blind devotion to a man who had destroyed them both. Not with the constant fear of violence erupting at any moment. So she grabbed her bag and fled before her anger and grief consumed her completely. Now, walking briskly down the empty street, she tried to swallow the heavy lump in her throat. She hated herself for leaving her mother behind, hated the helplessness that clung to her bones. Yet, what could she do? Diane refused to leave Martin, no matter how bad it got. And Megan, juggling college classes at the community college and waitressing shifts to keep them afloat, was stretched thin already. She paused outside the cafe, staring at the glowing neon sign above the door. Morning Glory. The irony wasn't lost on her. With a deep breath, she forced her tears back, wiped her face with the corner of her sleeve, and straightened her posture. By the time she walked inside, the Megan her co-workers knew, cheerful, competent, quick with a smile, would be the only version of herself visible. But beneath that mask, her thoughts churned. Something had to give. She couldn't go on like this forever. And though she didn't yet know it, the unraveling of her life at home was about to collide with a secret much larger than she ever imagined. One that would lead her straight into the path of a stranger who looked far too much like herself. By 8 o'clock, the cafe buzzed with its usual Saturday rhythm. The air was thick with the smell of coffee and sizzling bacon. The clinking of cutlery and the chatter of early risers who treated breakfast as ritual. Megan slit between tables with practiced ease, balancing plates on her arm while offering polite smiles. To anyone watching, she looked like any other hard-working waitress, her auburn hair tied back in a neat ponytail, her blue apron freshly pressed. Inside, however, she was still raw from the morning's fight at home. She buried herself in the rhythm of work, letting the routine distract her. But then she noticed him. At the far corner booth, half hidden by the hanging ferns that served as decoration, a man sat alone. He was in his early 30s, maybe 35, dressed in an understated grey blazer that didn't quite match the scuffed sneakers on his feet. He wasn't eating, only nursing a single cup of black coffee. Every few minutes, he glanced at the clock on the wall and then back toward the door, as though waiting for someone who was late. Megan wasn't the one assigned to his table. Her co-worker Amanda had taken his order, but she found her eyes drifting back to him. Something about the way he shifted in his seat, his restless fingers tapping the table, made her uneasy. "He's giving me the creeps," Amanda whispered as she passed Megan near the coffee station. "Keeps looking around like he's about to rob the place." Megan forced a small laugh. "Maybe he's just nervous. Not everyone's a criminal, you know." "Yeah, well, I don't like his eyes," Amanda said, shivering a little. "Cold. Like he's staring through you." Megan brushed it off, though she couldn't deny the man's presence unsettled her too. Still, the cafe was busy, and soon she was caught up again in refills, receipts, and customers asking for extra butter. By 10 o'clock, most of the breakfast crowd had cleared. The man remained, still alone, still sipping at the dregs of his coffee. Amanda approached him one last time, asking if he wanted anything else. But he shook his head quickly, stood, and left a few bills on the table. Without a word, he walked out the door. Megan exhaled, relieved he was gone. She didn't think about him again until she went to clear the table. The coffee cup was still half full, and beside it lay something that made her pause. A phone. Not some old, cracked device like her own, but a sleek, expensive model. Too expensive to be carelessly left behind. She picked it up, glancing toward the door, but the man was long gone. Her first instinct was to take it straight to the manager. That was policy. Any lost item went into the safe until the customer returned. But as she held the phone in her hand, A strange curiosity pricked at her. Who was he? Why had he been so tense? Watching the clock like every second mattered. And why did it feel, in her gut, like the phone was more than just a forgotten object? Megan, she muttered under her breath, scolding herself. Don't be stupid. Just hand it in. But her fingers, betraying her better judgment, pressed the side button. The screen lit up, locked, of course, but she noticed the wallpaper. For a split second, her breath caught in her throat, because the face smiling back at her from the screen was her own. It was unmistakable. Same auburn hair, same hazel eyes, but the girl in the photo wasn't wearing Megan's cafe uniform or standing in her cramped apartment. She was dressed in a white sundress, standing on a sandy beach, sun glowing behind her. A life Megan had never lived. Her knees nearly buckled, and she had to grip the edge of the table to steady herself. Her mind spun. How could her face, her exact face, be on this stranger's phone? And as that question burned in her chest, Megan knew she was standing at the edge of something she couldn't yet comprehend. Megan's hands trembled as she stared at the glowing phone screen. Her reflection smiled back at her, though the girl in the photo wasn't truly her. The smile was brighter, freer, untouched by exhaustion or sorrow. Her hair was perfectly styled, her skin kissed golden by the sun. Megan hadn't been on a beach vacation in her life. Her family could barely afford groceries some weeks, let alone plane tickets. She quickly clicked the screen dark, her heart pounding. It could be a coincidence, she thought desperately. Some girl who just looks like me. People say doppelgangers exist, right? And yet, the resemblance was too exact. Megan, you good? Amanda's voice jolted her back to reality. Her co-worker appeared at her side, balancing a tray of plates. Yeah, fine, Megan said too quickly, shoving the phone behind her back like a guilty child hiding candy. Amanda raised a brow. You find something? Megan hesitated. The logical answer was simple. Yes, a customer left his phone. I'll turn it in to the manager. But logic had abandoned her the moment she saw that photograph. Just the bill. He tipped well. Amanda grinned and hurried off, satisfied. Megan exhaled in relief. She tucked the phone into her apron pocket, finishing her tables with robotic motions until her shift ended. The moment she stepped outside into the cool afternoon air, she pulled it out again. The screen demanded a passcode. 4 empty boxes blinked at her. She remembered how often her father used his birth year for everything. His bank PIN, his email passwords. Most people weren't creative. Heart-hammering, she typed in 1997, her own birth year. The screen unlocked instantly. Megan gasped. Rows of apps filled the display. Messaging, social media, photos. With shaking fingers, she opened the photo gallery first. And there she was again. Not one photo, dozens. The girl, no, the other girl, was everywhere. Laughing with friends at a rooftop bar, walking across a college campus, posing in a white coat beside a hospital sign. In one, she wore an engagement ring, her hand clasped with a man's. Megan's stomach twisted as she zoomed in, staring at the face of a stranger who seemed to be living the life she had always wanted. Scrolling further, she stopped cold at a caption. "Can't wait to marry the love of my life. Just 2 weeks away. Emily." Emily. The girl had her face, her smile, her eyes, but her name was Emily. Megan sat down heavily on a bench near the cafe, her chest tight. She flicked through the messages app. Conversations scrolled past. Emily's friends, her fiancé, her professors. Each message was another glimpse into a life parallel to Megan's own, but brighter, shinier, unscarred. And then she saw one thread that froze her blood. "Unknown number. Don't forget what we agreed on. After the wedding, the business is ours." Emily's fiancé. "Relax. She won't suspect a thing. Just play your part. In 6 months, we'll be gone with more money than we ever dreamed." Megan's stomach churned. Her hands shook so badly, she almost dropped the phone. Whoever this Emily was, she was walking straight into a trap. And yet the most haunting question pressed at Megan's chest, louder than all the rest. Why did Emily look exactly like her? Megan couldn't focus on anything else for the rest of the day. The phone felt heavy in her bag, like it was radiating heat, demanding her attention. After leaving work, she wandered through the city in a daze, past shop windows, past families pushing strollers, past couples laughing on patios. She barely registered any of it. Her thoughts spun in endless circles, always crashing back into the same impossible truth. Somewhere out there was a girl named Emily who looked exactly like her. At dusk, Megan found herself sitting on a park bench near the river, the glow of street lamps dancing across the water. She pulled out the phone again, her thumb hovering over the contacts list. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This is insane. What if it's a scam? What if someone's playing with me? But the photos hadn't lied. Neither had the messages about Emily's upcoming wedding and the fiancé's plan to betray her. Megan swallowed hard. She scrolled until she found Emily's own number. Megan hesitated, then tapped call. The line rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice answered. "Hello?" Megan's breath caught in her throat. The voice was her own, or so close it made her dizzy. She almost hung up, panic clawing at her, but instead whispered, "Emily?" There was silence. Then, cautiously, "Who is this?" Megan's hands trembled so violently she had to grip the phone with both. "My name is Megan. I don't even know how to say this. I found a phone today. It had pictures of you. And you look like me, exactly like me." Another silence. Megan imagined the other girl staring at her screen in shock, just as she had on that bench hours earlier. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice faint but steady. "Turn on video, right now." Megan's throat went dry. She fumbled, pressed the button, and lifted the phone to her face. The screen flickered, then steadied. And there she was. Not in a mirror, not in a dream, but on the screen. A girl with her same hazel eyes, her same auburn hair. Her same features down to the slight curve of her nose. But Emily's hair was curled and glossy, her makeup polished, her background a neatly decorated apartment with framed art on the wall. For a long moment, neither spoke. They just stared at each other, wide-eyed, as if waiting for one face to dissolve into an illusion. Finally, Emily broke the silence. This can't be real." "I was hoping you'd tell me that," Megan said, her voice shaky. "But here we are." Emily leaned closer to her screen, her brow furrowed. "Who are you, really? Are you some kind of cousin? A long-lost sister?" "I don't know," Megan admitted. "I grew up here in Providence. My mum's name is Diane Price. My dad, well, his name's Martin, but he's—" She stopped, embarrassed. "He's not much of a dad." Emily's face softened, though suspicion still lingered in her eyes. "I grew up in Boston. My dad is Charles Whitman. He's very different from what you just described. My mum passed away when I was little." She paused, biting her lip. "I don't think we're cousins. You look exactly like me. That doesn't just happen." Megan hesitated. Should she tell Emily about the messages she'd seen? About the fiancé plotting behind her back? The words itched at her tongue, but blurting them out now might scare her away. Instead, she asked, "When's your birthday?" "July 22nd, 1997. Megan's stomach dropped. That's my birthday too." Emily's mouth fell open. For several long seconds, the two young women sat in stunned silence, each seeing her own face reflected in the other's, each wondering the same unthinkable question. Finally, Emily whispered, "What if we're sisters?" Megan's pulse roared in her ears. The thought had hovered at the edges of her mind all day. But hearing Emily speak it aloud made it real. "I don't know how," Megan said, voice breaking. "But maybe we are." Megan didn't sleep that night. She tossed in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, the faint glow of the street lamp painting shadows across the walls. Her phone lay on the nightstand, Emily's number still at the top of the call log. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Emily's face, her own face, blinking back at her, polished and confident in ways Megan had never been. By morning, exhaustion tugged at her, but something heavier pressed on her chest. Questions about her parents, about her own life, about everything she thought she knew. After her shift ended that afternoon, she found her mother in the kitchen, humming softly while folding laundry. Megan watched her for a long moment, taking in the lines at the corners of her mother's eyes, the tired slump of her shoulders. "Mum," Megan began, her voice unsteady. Diane glanced up. "What's wrong, honey?" Megan swallowed hard. Was there ever a chance I had a sister? Someone I don't know about?" The basket of laundry slipped from Diane's hands, shirts tumbling to the floor. Her face drained of colour. "Why would you ask that?" she whispered. Megan's heart pounded. Her mother's reaction was answer enough. "Because I met someone," she said carefully. "She looks exactly like me. Same birthday, same everything." Diane's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then, in a voice thin as paper, she said, "I never wanted you to know." Megan's knees went weak. So it's true. Tears welled in her mother's eyes. "You were born a twin, the hospital. There were complications. Your father and I, we couldn't afford 2 babies. He made arrangements, said one would go to a family who could give her more than we ever could. Megan's chest tightened, her pulse thundering in her ears. "You gave her away?" Diane broke down, covering her face with her hands. "I fought him, Megan. God knows I did. But your father insisted. He said it was the only way to give at least one of you a decent life." Megan staggered back, gripping the table for balance. The pieces clicked into place. Emily's wealth, her opportunities, the shining life she lived compared to Megan's struggles. Two lives diverged at birth, not by fate, but by choice. Her father's choice. She left the house before her mother could say more, tears stinging her eyes as she walked aimlessly through the city. The betrayal burned in her chest, but beneath it lay something sharper. Fear. Because Emily wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was her sister, and her sister was in danger. Megan pulled the phone from her pocket, scrolling back to the messages she'd read the day before. She won't suspect a thing. Just play your part. In 6 months, we'll be gone with more money than we ever dreamed. Her stomach churned. Emily was planning her wedding, blissfully unaware that the man she loved was setting her up. Megan's thumb hovered over Emily's contact. Should she tell her the truth now? That her fiancé was a liar? That he planned to rob her blind? Or would Emily dismiss her as jealous, crazy, a stranger trying to ruin her happiness? Megan sat on a bench in the fading light, phone clutched in both hands, heart torn in two. She had already lost one sisterhood to her father's lies. Could she risk losing this one too by staying silent? Finally, she whispered aloud, "She has to know." Her finger pressed call. The line rang, once, twice. Emily answered, her voice warm with recognition. "Megan, I was hoping you'd call back." Megan's throat went dry. She took a deep breath. "There's something you need to hear about your fiancé." Emily's smile faltered as soon as Megan's words left her mouth. "What did you just say?" Megan gripped the phone tighter, her palms slick with sweat. "I wasn't looking for anything, I swear. But when I found your phone, I saw messages from your fiancé. He's planning something bad. He's talking about money, about leaving you." For a moment, Emily just stared at her through the video call. Her polished confidence flickered, replaced by something brittle. "That's impossible," she said, but her voice wavered. "Nathan loves me. We've been together for 3 years. He wouldn't." Megan leaned forward, desperate to make her believe. "I know it sounds insane, but I read it, word for word. He said in 6 months he'd be gone, with more money than he ever dreamed." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. She stood abruptly, pacing across the camera's view. Her apartment looked immaculate. White walls, neat furniture, everything carefully curated. But Emily herself was unraveling. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "Nathan is everything. My father, he's been pushing this marriage. The company merger depends on it. Everyone expects us to be perfect." Megan's heart twisted. Her sister, her twin, was trapped in a life gilded with expectations, a cage lined with luxury. "Emily," she said softly, "I don't care about your dad's company or appearances. I care about you. He's lying to you. You can't marry him." Emily sank onto her couch, her hands shaking. "I don't know what to believe. You show up out of nowhere, looking exactly like me, saying we're sisters, saying the man I love is—" She broke off, pressing her palms against her eyes. Megan let the silence stretch, afraid to push harder. But after a long pause, Emily whispered, "If what you're saying is true, I need proof." Megan nodded quickly. "Then let's find it, together." Emily lowered her hands, her hazel eyes, their eyes, shining with unshed tears. The answer rose from somewhere deep inside Megan, surprising her with its certainty. "Because no one helped me, and I'm not about to let you go through the same thing." For the first time, Emily's lips curved into a faint, fragile smile. It was like watching her own reflection soften in a way she'd never seen. But the moment shattered with the sound of a door opening on Emily's end of the call. A male voice called out casually, "You home?" Emily's eyes widened in panic. She fumbled to mute the phone, whispering urgently, "It's him. Don't say anything." Then she set the phone face down, the screen showing only the ceiling. Megan sat frozen, her pulse thundering. She strained to catch the muffled voices. Nathan's tone was warm, practiced, the voice of a man who knew how to charm. "There's my girl. Rough day?" Emily's reply was faint, forced. "Just tired." A kiss. Footsteps. Then silence. Megan stared at the ceiling view, rage simmering in her chest. She wanted to scream at him through the phone, to tell Emily to throw him out right now. But all she could do was wait, heart pounding, until Emily returned and flipped the camera back. Her face was pale, her smile stretched thin. "I'll call you later," she whispered. Then the screen went dark. Megan sat alone in her apartment, the silence pressing in on her. She'd lit the fuse. Now she could only wait for the explosion. Emily couldn't stop replaying Megan's words in her mind. "In 6 months, he'll be gone, with more money than he ever dreamed." The next morning, Nathan slid a cappuccino across the marble kitchen island, his smile polished, his tie knotted with effortless precision. "Big day at the office, huh?" he said. Emily forced a smile, wrapping her hands around the warm cup to hide their trembling. "Yeah, big day." His lips brushed her temple before he grabbed his briefcase and left, the door clicking shut behind him. The moment she was alone, Emily exhaled a shaky breath. Everything about Nathan seemed the same. Thoughtful, attentive, perfect. But now, every word, every gesture felt staged. The performance she was only just learning to see through. Her phone buzzed. A text from Megan. "Did he suspect anything?" Emily's thumbs hovered. She typed back, "No, he's acting normal. Maybe too normal." The reply came fast. "Then we need to look where he doesn't expect you to. Start small. Emails, receipts, anything." Emily hesitated, then crossed the room to Nathan's office. She rarely entered his space. Everything was meticulously organized. Glass desk, spotless. Leather chair, perfectly angled. His laptop sat closed, waiting. Her pulse quickened as she opened it. Password screen. She tried the obvious. Her birthday. Wrong. His mother's birthday. Wrong. Finally, after 3 more failed guesses, the screen locked. She cursed under her breath. A notification chimed on her phone. Megan again. "Don't risk too much. Just watch him. People slip when they feel safe." Emily leaned against the desk, her chest tight. She hated this. The sneaking, the spying. but she hated more the idea that Megan might be right. That night, she tested him. She set her wine glass down at dinner and said lightly, "Oh, I met someone interesting the other day. She looked so much like me, it was eerie." Nathan chuckled, spearing a piece of salmon. "Guess you've got a twin out there somewhere." Emily studied him carefully. No flicker of surprise, no unease, just charm. Too easy, she thought. "Wouldn't it be wild," she pressed, "if I actually had a twin and didn't know it?" Nathan smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Impossible. Your family would have told you. Besides, one of you is more than enough for me." The line should have sounded sweet. Instead, it felt rehearsed. That night, long after Nathan fell asleep, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She picked up her phone and dialed Megan. Megan answered groggily. "Em?" Emily's throat tightened at the nickname. No one had ever called her that before. Not like that. "I tested him," Emily whispered. I think you're right. He didn't flinch. He's too smooth, too perfect." Megan's voice softened. "Then we'll catch him, but not by rushing. You've lived your whole life with him controlling the story. Now it's our turn." Emily closed her eyes, listening to her sister's steady voice. For the first time in days, the panic inside her loosened, just a little. They were strangers. They were sisters. And now they were allies. But as Emily drifted toward uneasy sleep, a single thought kept circling in her mind. If Nathan really was planning to betray her, what else had he already done that she didn't know about? The next week passed in fragments of tension Emily could hardly hold together. Every morning, Nathan kissed her goodbye with the same polished ease. And every night, he asked about her day with practiced attentiveness. But now, Emily listened differently. Every word sounded hollow, like an actor delivering lines from a script he'd already memorized. She began to keep a secret notebook tucked beneath her side of the mattress. In it, she scribbled Nathan's oddities, calls he took late at night in hushed tones, unexplained meetings that stretched long past office hours, receipts from restaurants she'd never heard him mention. On Thursday, when he returned home with the faint smell of expensive cologne that wasn't his, Emily's hand shook so hard she nearly dropped her pen. That night, she called Megan. "He's careful," Emily whispered into the phone, pacing her immaculate bedroom. "But not careful enough. I found a receipt for a dinner. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, and it wasn't with me." Megan's breath hissed through the speaker. "He's meeting someone. Maybe a mistress, or maybe the person he's planning this 6 months thing with." Emily's stomach clenched. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but I almost want it to be another woman, because the alternative is worse. If it's business, if he's planning to use me, to use my family." Her voice cracked. "Then he's not just a liar," Megan finished gently. "He's dangerous." Silence stretched between them, heavy with the truth neither wanted to face. The next evening, Emily made her move. When Nathan left for a supposed late meeting, she slipped into his office again. This time, instead of his laptop, she tried the locked drawer of his desk. To her surprise, the second key on his keyring opened it easily. Inside, she found a slim leather folder. Her hands trembled as she flipped it open. Contracts, wire transfers, pages and pages of financial documents stamped with the name of her father's company. And at the bottom, in neat print, the name Nathan Grant. Listed under a silent partner agreement, one Emily had never heard about. She snapped photos with her phone, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would echo down the hall. That night, she sent them to Megan. The reply came almost instantly. This isn't just betrayal. This is fraud. He's setting you up. Emily sat frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at the photos glowing on her screen. The man sleeping beside her wasn't just planning to leave. He was weaving a trap that could destroy her and everything her family had built. For the first time, rage cut through her fear. She wasn't going to be Nathan's victim, and she wasn't going to face this alone. She picked up the phone, her voice steady now as she told Megan, "If we're going to stop him, I'll need your help. All of it." On the other end of the line, Megan's silence held for only a heartbeat before she said, fierce and certain, "Then we do it together." By the time October's chill settled over the city, Emily no longer felt like the same woman who once floated through life on Nathan's arm. She carried her notebook everywhere now, its pages thick with dates, names, numbers. Every secret she collected added weight, but also clarity. Nathan wasn't just preparing to leave. He was building a quiet exit that would bury her in debt and scandal, while he walked away clean and rich. Emily and Megan met in secret, usually in Megan's tiny apartment on the edge of town. There, surrounded by stacks of papers and glowing laptop screens, they pieced together Nathan's scheme. His fake accounts, his offshore transfers, the silent deals signed with her father's rivals. 6 months, Megan muttered one night, jabbing her finger at the dates scrawled across Emily's notes. That's when everything matures. He cashes out, and you're left holding the bag. Emily's throat tightened. Unless we get there first. Together, they built their plan. Emily would play the part of the trusting wife just a little longer. Megan, meanwhile, dug into records Nathan never expected anyone to question. And when the time was right, they'd expose him on their terms. The night finally came on a Friday. Nathan had just poured himself a glass of bourbon in his study when Emily appeared in the doorway. "Big week, huh?" she said softly. Nathan smiled, golden and smooth. "You could say that. Things are finally coming together." Emily stepped inside, her pulse steady. "Funny, that's exactly what I was thinking." She dropped the leather folder onto his desk, the same one she'd taken from his drawer weeks ago, only now it was stuffed with every copy. Every screenshot, every damning document she and Megan had gathered. For the first time since she'd met him, Nathan's smile faltered. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice low and sharp. Emily's hands didn't shake. "From you. You left the pieces lying around, and I learned how to put them together." Nathan leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Emily, you don't understand." "No," she cut him off, her voice rising. "I do understand. You were going to ruin me, my family, everything I've ever cared about. And you were going to walk away as if I was just some pawn you could use. Nathan stood abruptly, but before he could move closer, another figure stepped from the hallway. Megan. She crossed her arms, her gaze steady and unflinching. Game's over, Nathan. His face went pale. You? Yes, Megan said coldly. The twin you didn't know existed. The one who's been watching while you thought you had it all under control. For once, Nathan was speechless. Emily pulled a recorder from her pocket and pressed play. His late-night calls, his promises to partners, his admissions of timing, all captured clearly. You taught me to pay attention, she whispered, and now I have everything I need. Nathan's mask cracked, anger twisting his features. But before he could lash out, Emily added, The authorities already have copies. This is just your warning. You don't get to hurt me, not anymore. The silence that followed was thick and final. Nathan sank back into his chair, defeated, his empire of lies crumbling around him. Emily felt Megan's hand slit into hers, firm and grounding. For the first time, Emily wasn't just Nathan's wife or her father's daughter. She was her own person, stronger, sharper, and no longer alone. As they left the study together, Megan squeezed her hand and said quietly, You're free now. Emily looked at her sister, the stranger who had become her closest ally, and nodded. Not just free, she said. We're starting over. Together. And as the door shut behind them, the house that once felt like a gilded cage no longer held her at all. If you like the story, I would be very happy to have your support. Click the thumbs up. And to not miss new stories, subscribe and click on the bell. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and all the best.